Thank you for joining us today in discussing PhD program performance evaluation and aligning metrics to our mission. My name is Melissa Susi. I'm the Planning and Data Analyst Principal at Graduate College Data and Technology Office. And this is...
And my name is Bailu Li. I'm actually the Business Intelligence Associate in Grad College. And today we'd like to present you, and this is our agenda. So we want to give you an overview for the PhD trends at SU. And also we'll talk about the ACD. If you don't know this acronym, then you will know it soon, okay? And also the ASU PhD trends. We will talk about why we start this initiative, our goal and purpose of this one, and also give you an overview for the PhD fundings that actually students could have. Then we'll actually go to our project, our initiative, and we're talking about, because we're right now in phase 1. So this is the initial phase. So we'll show you what we have right now. And then we'll talk about more details for methodology, for the data sources we have. We'll give you some example for our Outreach workflow. And we will show you a sneak peek of our dashboard, because we are still working on that one. And the last part will actually give you some of our like next step plan and also the challenges we have. So this is the agenda.
Okay. Introduction. Why do we want to evaluate PhD program performance? Evaluating PhD program performance not only ensures that our PhD programs stay competitive, but it also helps us be more effective, equitable, and align with our institutional goals. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay. Okay, PhD programs require significant investment from faculty time, research infrastructure, and funding. Systematic evaluations allow ASU to identify what's working, identify programs that need a little bit more help, and help us allocate resources more effectively so that we can maximize impact and student success. So nationally, PhD programs face challenges related to attrition, time to degree, and completion rates. Only about 55 to 60% of PhD students graduate within a 10-year period, highlighting the need for intentional intervention and monitoring of student progress, program support, and the intentional removing of structural barriers for student success. The Graduate College Executive Team, I'm not sure if they're here today, well, Steve is. They initiated a comprehensive PhD program performance initiative to gain deeper insights into program health and to assist the colleges to strategically allocate block funds, more specifically the University Graduate Fellowship Funds, to support PhD program success. So ongoing analysis of the identified metrics in this initiative will provide valuable insights and inform data-driven decision-making. Okay, so here is just kind of a snapshot of our PhD program in terms of admissions and degrees awarded. We have actually, I'll talk about the trends in a little bit, but we can, from the fall 2025 data, we are just down slightly from fall 2024. I think the newly enrolled numbers were 598. This year it's 570, which is not significantly lower, but something to keep an eye on. Our degrees awarded, this dashboard is from our analytics site. It's based on degree conferral date. So it's not what's submitted to iPads. So this trend, you can see that we've been pretty flat for quite some time. And then last fiscal year, we've actually increased doctoral degree production significantly, kind of boosting our rankings in the survey of earned doctorates. Okay, so here we have some trends for admissions, total enrollment, and degree production. And this overview of PhD student trends, looking at all of these factors. For PhD admissions, we're seeing a growth in PhD applications since 2022. It's a slight growth, which suggests increasing interest and demand for ASU PhD programs. Fall 2025, there was a 28% increase in applicants. You don't see that here because my visual only goes up to fall 2024, but there are over 6,000 applicants for fall 2025. Enrollments have been steady as well, with a slight bump in 2023 before leveling off through fall 2025. Overall, this reflects a strong demand and balanced capacity with room for targeted growth. Total enrollment trends here, we see a clear upward trend since 2021. There was a dip during the pandemic years, but then with a slight bump in 2023 before leveling off through fall 2025. Overall, enrollments have been steady. Overall, this reflects a strong demand and balanced program capacity. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong data here. There is a slight dip in 2025, again, similar to total newly enrolled for admissions, but it's not alarming. It's something to look for, though, and keep an eye on. Enrollment remains above pre-pandemic levels, showing continued growth and a strong post-COVID recovery and stability. And finally, we see consistent growth in PhD degrees awarded. There was a peak in 2020 and modest and steady increases in completions from 21 through 24. This data is census data. This data is actually given to us from census and from survey of earned doctorates. So it's going to be a little different from what I showed previously for degrees awarded by conferral date. So this reflects the continued progress in doctoral productivity and improved program stabilization after the pandemic. And together, these trends show a positive picture. ASU's doctoral programs are attracting more applicants. They are maintaining stable enrollment and producing more graduates. The overall direction of recovery and growth, which aligns with our efforts to strengthen doctoral success through new PhD performance evaluation framework. Sorry, this is going to be a lot of overview before we get into our project. There we go. Okay, so here is some data obtained from the survey of earned doctorates. And this is a percent change in PhD production trend over time. And the yellow line is us, ASU, and the gray line is the national. And this is showing percent change year over year. So this is not actual numbers, but percent change of degree production year over year. The US trend remains relatively stable. There is slight fluctuation, but it shows a very modest or mature and stable degree production environment. But in contrast, ASU's year-over-year trend exhibited much greater volatility, swinging as low as -15 in 2016 and then jumping up 25% in 2020, 2019, surpassing the national trend. This was followed by a steep decline in 21, probably due to COVID, with delayed defenses, limited lab access, and effects from funding cuts. Post-COVID, both trends converged to zero to slight positive growth, suggesting recovery and normalization, where you can see ASU moved back in line with national trends. To sustain momentum beyond 2024, ASU should focus on consistent doctoral funding, proactive recruitment expansion, and strategies that enhance student progression and time to completion. I skipped one. Oh, there we go. I wanted to show this just to give you an idea of the trend of 5-year completion rates. This looks a little alarming, but to tell you the truth, this is on average 35 to 45% complete within a 5-year period nationally. So the 5-year graduation rate here is showing a downward trend, suggesting fewer students are completing within 5 years compared to earlier cohorts. Each of these this is following the 2014 cohort, 15 cohort, and so on. So on this Council of Graduate Schools report, a 5-year completion rate typically ranges again between 35 to 45%, depending on the field. Okay. We're here at the goal and purpose. Okay, the PhD program evaluation framework has been developed to standardize the assessment of all doctoral programs across the university to guide the equitable distribution of university graduate fellowship funds. This initiative is being implemented in two phases. Phase one is to evaluate performance of all PhD programs in a standardized manner to ensure a fair and equitable distribution of UGF funds. And then phase two will expand the framework to all graduate programs, including master's programs, with adjustments, of course, for master's level indicators and program diversity. The framework will assess programs using a 3-year rolling average, providing consistent and stable measures of performance over time. Colleges will receive detailed program level evaluation support, internal planning, and funding allocation. Graduate college is not telling colleges how to fund their students. This is a decision or a communication tool used to help colleges make strategic decisions based on the program health of their PhD programs. So a pilot phase in this academic year will test the feasibility of the model before full rollout. We're in that phase. Okay, and so here you can see kind of the cycle of the project where we're starting with the standardization, evaluation of all the PhD programs and then expanding it to master's programs and then evaluating and improving and repeating the cycle. I swear, I won't talk so much more and then I'll hand it over to Wiley on the technical aspects. Okay, so now we're going to talk about PhD funding. The goal of this evaluation is to help colleges allocate the block fund, University Graduate Fellowships, but Grad College does offer 2 other funding sources to improve or help PhD students complete. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about those sources now. So we have the University Graduate Fellowship Block Grant, and that's used primarily for recruitment. And it's also to promote timely completion of PhD students. Eligibility of UGF awards requires the recipients to be enrolled in at least 6 credit hours and to be on campus and be part of a department demonstrating success in recruitment and completion. The purpose of the evaluation scorecard is to help colleges determine which departments will receive a percentage of the UGF funds. So the initial evaluation will produce a PhD program scorecard for each college. Each PhD plan will receive a set of raw scores across standardized performance metrics. Bailu will go ahead and talk about those 7 metrics. The average of these raw scores will form the funding score for all the college. The funding score will then be used by colleges to inform the distribution of the UGF funds in a transparent and equitable way. The data-driven scorecard will enable ASU's graduate college and academic units to make funding decisions grounded in performance, student success, and institutional priorities. Okay. Oh. Now we have the completion fellowship. This award is targeted to students in their final semester or final year. Okay, the Completion Fellowship is a merit-based award designed to support outstanding graduate students who are in their final year of their terminal degree. So it provides financial support to allow students to focus solely on completing their degree. So students cannot be in an RA or TA appointment concurrently, and they have to be within, they have to have good academic standing. So this is to allow the PhD students to focus solely on finishing their degree without the burden of other financial stresses. Focus on Finishing Your Degree Award is another completions type award, and this is targeted to those students who are in ABD or post-candidacy that are struggling to complete their degree or are at risk of attrition. So it supports PhD and DMA students who achieved candidacy 2 or more years ago and need focused time to complete their dissertation. So recipients must be in good academic standing and within the allowable time to completion framework. The FFYD, oh, sorry. There is no scrolling here. Okay. Okay, so together, I'll wrap this up. Together, the UGF Completion Award and the FFYD Award form a comprehensive ecosystem that supports PhD students at critical points in their academic journey. And so this performance evaluation framework is to help support this main one, the UGF block grant, not the other two that are given by graduate college. And now, like I promised, I'm handing it over to Bailu. She'll go ahead and go over the data sources and the methodology for our project.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. So now actually we're doing the phase 1 overview. It's actually about what we have done so far. So let's take a look. So first, you see there was a lot of like metrics data and also some fun math. So hopefully, okay, but it's actually, I promise you, it's like elementary, okay, school level. It's won't be too complicated. So yeah, so basically we have some, like the first idea you should have is about the raw scores. So we have 7 metrics that we have for the, to form the score, like the phase 1. And with those 7 metrics, we're actually trying to give each of them a raw score. And but this raw score is actually benchmarked by either the department best performer or the national average. Okay, so yeah, we're actually setting up like this because we want to compare apple to apple. Like think about a very small, like liberal arts PhD programs versus the massive engineering program. Yeah, if you actually don't give them like benchmark that is local and context-based, it's not fair to them, right? So that's why we set up the benchmark on the department level or national level, so so that they can compare the performance across the university. And this raw score is actually literally your metric score divided by the benchmark score. So, and then you can also times 100 to make it not a percentage. Okay, so this is one, and you will actually see it one more time after I actually go through each of the metrics. So you can think about if out of 100, if kind of a program gets 87, say in 6-year retention, that means the best like program in their department has 100, and you are doing proportionally as 87 out of 100 for your program in this metric. Okay, so but remember, we don't have only one metric, we have a few, okay? But you can think about if you actually are trying to having the metrics for this performance, what kind of metrics you are trying to include, okay? And I will review it in 5 seconds for that. Okay, so yeah, we don't have pop quiz, so don't worry about it. So next one, what we want to talk about are the Okay, so here you go. Those are the 7 metrics we have in phase 1. So we have the capacity rate that we're talking about, the PhD student per endorsed graduate faculty who is chair or co-chair that can actually to the dissertations in their program. So that's the capacity rate. The next one is how they used the UGF, our funding for the UGF, like how much they allocated and how much they used, the percentage of it. Then the next one is the yield rate, which is like the PhD students, like they admitted and how much of them get enrolled into the PhD programs in their admit year. Then the next one, the time to completion, retention rate, this is 6-year retention rate, as well as persistence. This two sounds like duplicate, but actually this is 6-year overall, and persistence rate is actually 1-year persistence rate after ABD or dissertation phase. So these two are looking at different perspective of the retention. And not last but not least, we have the kind of the research intensity, which we look at the RA appointments, RA lines that students are funded by RA funding. So this one, then the next one, we'll actually look into each of the details. So I will actually show you 3 major components for each of them. One is the metric score. One is their benchmark. We actually use different types of benchmarks for different metric. We try to try to get it fair. So if we can find the national average for everything, we try to compare to national average so we can see how we stand for in the national stage. But if we actually, it's a little bit hard or it's not consistent data, we're trying to use this program compared to their department. So we're just trying to still compare apples to apples. So for the first one, the capacity, we are trying to see how the programs utilize their faculty's advising capacity. So this is the ratio of the PhD students divided by the endorsed graduate faculty, which are the chairs and co-chairs that they actually can support students' dissertation. So our benchmark is the best performance in their department. And the data source we're using, the PhD students who are using the census enrollment data, and then the endorsement grad faculty who actually are using some internal grad college user tables for approved and active faculty members. So this is how we do the capacity rate. So next one is how we use this funding, the UGF funding. So we are trying to see how much they use the funding, because the higher percentage they use it, that means actually they are trying more to help student success financially, at least for throughout the cycle. So our benchmark is still like this one, because actually the allocated funding is actually to the department level. So we'll compare the department level to the entire university-wide. So this is a special one because it can only break down by the department level. So we also, the data source we use are still some internal grad college, like the UGF. You can see it's already the UGF summaries and the views of it. So we're actually collecting the allocating amount over the 3 years and how much they offered over the 3 years. So we're trying to find the percentage of them using it.
That for the department level, we assign the department level metric to all the academic plans within that department. So you'll see that some of the plans will have the same metric because they all belong to that department. We don't have the plan level distribution for UGF. So we try our best to kind of keep all the plans within their departmental allocation.
Okay, thank you, Melissa, for adding up this part. So the next one what we have is actually the yield rate. So this one is actually, we're just counting over the students who actually admitted, how many of them enrolled. So it's more kind of attractiveness of the PhD programs here, like how much they would really enrolled after they get admitted. And this one, we do find a national average. So it's actually from the CGS, the Council of the Graduate Schools. So we compare it to the compare these programs using the zip code, which actually is the broad field of this area, and we compare our individual PhD plans to the national average by the broad field.
This as well. So basically, the plans that we have here at ASU, we categorize them into the broad fields that were provided by the Council of Graduate School report. And we did this by using a zip code and also by communicating with units and executive leadership on how to place programs like psychology in either a social science or behavioral science or hard science to that extent. So we have that all the plans are placed into their respective broad field.
Yeah. Okay. So, and also I did not mention that we actually are using the 3-year average, rolling average of over the 3 years, because we don't say if there was actually temporary spike or dip, we don't just want to count only 1 year surprise to that. We are just trying to use the 3-year average to make this performance as consistent as possible. So that's why we use the rolling average over 3 years for all of our metrics. Okay, so here is the number 4, the time to completion. So this one we actually are just using the medium time students take to earn their PhD, and also for actually for PhD it's long time. Like some students may actually take leave of absence during this time, and we're actually trying to excluding those leave of absence time. So basically, they are real like PhD study research time. So this is what we're accounting for. So this one, we are trying to see how efficient the program is, like how they support the students towards the degree awarded. So this is why we have this metrics. And we also, for the time to time to degree or time to completion, we are based on the giant shoulder. We actually, thank you for Mary Carriol, if I pronounce name that, not that correctly, but sorry about that. But basically from institution analysis, they actually shared with us their logic for not only the time to completion, but also the persistence logic. So we're actually just trying to curate our customized data based on the giant's shoulder. So really appreciate that them sharing those logic. So for the leave of absence, the LOA, we actually pulled from the approved IPOS petitions because all the students will have to have the approved IPOS petitions to really do the leave of absence. And then the benchmark is the national average, which is the survey of earned doctorates. And they actually have a part of time to degree, so we can compare like us to the nationwide. So this is about the time to completion. Okay, so the next one. Okay, so this is 5th through the 7th, so we're almost towards there. Okay, so this one is the retention rate. So so this one we actually are looking at the 6 year, because actually Melissa mentioned that 5-year like completion rate is relatively low. So we're looking at 6-year retention. So this one actually is also based on the persistence model from institutional analysis. They actually have like 1-year persistence through 10-year persistence, and we're looking at the 6-year like persistence rate as our base. Then we actually use the department's highest performer as our benchmark. And we are just trying to see like over the time, like how the program support the students and how effectively they support students so the students still retain in their program. So this is 6-year retention rate. And as I previously mentioned, we also count persistence rate, but in a different perspective. So we're looking at all but dissertation phase. And this, if you actually, you may heard or you already experienced, that's actually one of the toughest time in your like PhD cycle, because many of the students, if they sometimes will feel very stressful here. And also, since we actually compare the data historically, we found that we have majority or most among the 3 semesters, the most like ABD students in the spring semester. So we focus on the spring to spring persistence this time, but we may change it or actually modify it later. But right now we're doing the spring to spring persistence, and the benchmark is still the department like highest performer. And we're actually not including the degree awarded students, but also still active students. We're seeing whether they actually be persistent post like the post candidacy, and we collect their candidacy dates from our IPOS. So we do have the like the timestamps for their candidacy time, and so this is how we actually collect the data source for that. And we have the last but not least one here. It's the research intensity. So we are trying to see how the students in that program engage in research. And we're actually using the RA appointment as to count like how many students are funded by the RA lines. So that one, I think it's actually credits to Steve and Melissa. They actually converted to Hyperion like workflow to Ultrix workflow so that we can pull the RA appointments from that. So this is how we pull the data from that. So this is matrix 7 matrix. Hopefully you can still remember, if not all, but majority of them. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, you may actually kind of think about, okay, so yeah, those are kind of like theoretically, okay, like you want to do those metrics, but how you do it. Sorry, actually I already disclosed some part of it, but yeah, we are doing the like rolling average of 3 years, and how we do it, we actually use 6-year retention rate as example. So you can see, first we have two major resources. Okay, so the persistent logic from the institutional analysis, okay, the giants that we actually set up on. And then we have active PhD programs. And we're just trying to see, we only need the inner joint, okay, so that includes the active students in the active PhD programs that actually are still being be consistent, be persistent, and also retain in the program. Then we're trying to sort it by academic plan, and more importantly, the term descendingly, because we want to see the most recent term as rank number 1, and then the older ones to be 2, 3, 4, like that. Okay, so then we actually use a magic tool called the multiple row formula. So basically, this one is like you can look across multiple rows of data, kind of comparing notes from one year to another, but actually it's actually ranked from the most recent one to the least recent ones. And actually many of the programs are very long-lasting ones, and they have multiple rankings, right? And we only need the reason 3, so we filter by the term mark less than equal to 3, so the reason 3 rolling years. Okay, and the very last step is literally, yeah, we use the summarize tool to find the average, okay, of those 3 years, so that we can only we get only one metric score for the 6-year retention for this program. So this is kind of how we do this is a simplified version, but this is the logic behind it, like how we do it. So if we have existing data sets, and we are actually we are trying to use the one because those are already like QA verified information, and some of those we actually go through our own development and the QA process. So, okay, remember this one, the raw score well back here, okay? So yeah, so basically we're trying to do the fun math parts right now, okay? So we have 3 slides of math. So are you ready for that? Okay, the first one is like how we calculate the raw score for each of the metric per plan. Okay, so we're just trying to set the department or the national average as 100. And then you compare proportionally to that 100, okay? So say this capacity ratio of this program is 87%. That means actually if the highest performer is 100, you are 87. Okay, so then we actually can get the raw score for all the 7 magic metrics. And with that, we average them. Actually some of the programs make good at this one, a little bit low on the other one, but we're trying to average them so that we can have a holistic overview of their performance from different angles and perspectives. So this is how we just kind of average those 7 metrics. So this kind of program A got 73.29. So this is about this one. Okay, so now how we use this average score to the funding score. Okay, so we actually need to add another component, which is the current enrollment. So this is actually the final phase of their funding score. So it's kind of, the idea is if the program is actually larger and have a stronger performance, then they have a greater impact, and we should allocate more money to this this program. So, but also we want to be fair, so that's why we have the benchmarks, across within each of the department as you may still remember, right? So we actually want to, so you can see we have 3 programs here. A is the one we're looking at, the target one. Then B and C, actually both of them, the average score is higher, but their enrollment, current enrollment actually are quite different. One is like B is 11 students enrolled right now, and C is 46 students enrolled right now. So if we actually use the average score times the current enrollment for the A, divided by the total of their college, that's actually, if there was only 3 PhD programs in this college, that's how we allocate for each of the college, how much like UGF fundings they would have. So do you think it exceeds the elementary school level? I guess. Okay, so yeah, that's how we do it. So yeah, so basically what the phase 1 first step is literally we're trying to collect, we try to clean the data, we try to curate the data. It's more like we're trying to preparing those ingredients. Okay, get ready for the final course. So now I'll hand over to Melissa to talk about our development of our final course.
For some of our data source when we pull it into Tableau. So this is an example of 3 metrics, right? So we have, for 3 metrics, we're pulling in the GC enrollment data, which is the census enrollment data, and we're connecting it to the grad faculty AUDB table, the RA lines AUDB table, and the UGF utilization AUDB table. And they're all connected via relationship. So this is a fairly new thing with Tableau. Before, you can only connect them via joins, but now you can connect them via a relationship, so that each of the tables can keep their level of detail data. There's no duplication. So it combines each of the data source when it's needed in a query, rather than upfront blending the data and possibly and realistically creating duplicates. So this is actually very good. It's very flexible, and it allows for a cleaner, I don't want to say blending of data because that's a different terminology, but it makes the querying more efficient. So here, I already kind of told you this. So this is going to help with the capacity ratio. This is going to help with the research intensity, and this is going to help with how current departments are utilizing their UGF funds at the moment. Okay, so this is kind of an example of a calculated field that's using, this is for UGF utilization. This is just a mock-up, and we have here in the visual, we have a 3-year average utilization by department and then compared university-wide. And so this is looking at the academic org. So this was a tricky exercise because academic org, academic prog, and academic plan, which are all codes, are pretty standard among data sources. But when we get into academic org description, prog description, and plan description, depending on the data source, you might have a different description. So we're using academic org here as the fixed level of detail. And then for here, we're getting a calculation for this specific department. So if you don't know, academic org is department code. And it sums all the allocation across 3 years. We're using a 3-year average. And then we also compare that to what was used or what's left over. So it'll be 1 minus what's left divided by what was allocated to get the amount of utilization for that department. And because we only have department level data for this metric, we assign this score, which happens to be 1 for the department, and all the academic plans within that department get that score 1. So here's kind of a mock-up of what the dashboard would look like. The first page will have, this is a landing page, homepage, where there's a filter and you can choose the academic plan. That filter is powered by a parameter. We had to create a standardized ACAD plan and a standardized ACAD plan description because of the difference in the naming conventions. And so the selection will have a concatenated academic plan code and description together. And so once you select and you go to dashboard, it'll take you to this dashboard, which will have all the metrics here. The score, the raw score, will be in the header of the metric. And the visualizations are giving your program plan the ability to look at the department score and the college score. So it's not, the college score is not considered in the raw score. It's usually the benchmark score, and most of them are using the department. So the programs can see where they stand compared to their department and their college as a whole. And then to the far right here, you can see their average score that's calculated, and then their funding score. And again, this is used as a communication tool and something for the colleges to use. This is not a carrot or stick. This is more for the colleges and to help them think about how to improve PhD program success. Next steps. Did you want to talk? Wow. So we have, again, we're in phase 1. We are initiating the pilot very soon, probably in the next month. So we're going to use a pilot with a subset of programs. We're using 36, spread across all the colleges and departments so that we can kind of have a sneak peek of what that distribution would look like ahead of time. And then the phase 2 will evaluate how we do with the PhD programs and then kind of go into the master's program expansion. And for the master's program expansion, we'll use different metrics because the master's programs operate and they have a different success metrics attached to them compared to the PhD programs. And also, this is an opportunity for us to see what's working, what we need to fix. And again, the steering committee that's behind all the decision making with all these metrics are going to continually meet to improve where we stand and what we need to include in terms of evaluating PhD programs. Right now, we're using internal metrics. We know that there are a lot more qualitative metrics that could be used to assess program evaluation and PhD program performance. But for now, this is the initial phase, and then we will expand that possibly to other metrics that will look at placement. I know job placement is an important metric for a PhD program performance, and also most likely student climate, student mentality, and student feelings about their program, mentors possibly, without incriminating anyone. Okay, and I think that's it. Do we have any questions? That was a very long-winded program. Sorry. Okay. Okay, very good. Okay, thank you very much.